but today we want to talk about 1984. And it is my honor and privilege to introduce a councilman, a leader, but we did in 2019, we did 40 years of mayors. And a question was asked to Leon Tuttle, who was your best councilman? And he stated, Russell Phelps was the best. What you're going to learn today is if it wasn't for the leadership of this council under Leon Tuttle as mayor, you wouldn't see what we have. And today I've asked Russell to talk about it. But the new horizon and the slogan started due to this council. And what you'll see around town, this council made a difference. They were forward thinking, and we now still we reap the benefits of their leadership to this day. So it is my honor and privilege to introduce my friend, former councilman, Russell Phelps.
All right, Mr. Phelps, let's test it and see if we need it.
Or do what to do. Can you hear me without this?
What?
Okay, good. That takes care of that. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, you see, I got your picture up there too. Look.
Okay, all right. Now, I just want to tell you, I'm the guy in the middle. Oh, just look at what 40 years and about 5 pounds, maybe 30 pounds difference in mass. All right. Had some friends that apparently Mark put somewhere that I was talking, and I had several friends say, "Oh, we go that all the time, but we're not going to be there this time." So for those of you who are here because you didn't have someplace better to go, welcome. Glad you're here. Let's talk about Rockwall in early 1980s, late 75s. What did it consist of? We had the Baptist church up here where it is. We had George Lyons Funeral Home next to the Baptist church. Coming up, we had where Jim Pruitt's office is. You had the Rotary Club. You had Wesley Barton's lawnmower shop that fixed lawnmowers. He was Ben Clutch's son-in-law. Then we had the many things at the old hotel thing. We had across the hall here where Trevino's was a insurance agency. Had a chiropractor store. Then we had the Yellow Jacket, which was run by a guy named Arnold. He was called Tarzan. If you walked into his shop and he didn't like your politics, he would run you out with a butcher knife. Then over here we had, where the 7-Eleven is, there was a place called Vivian's, which was a fantastic place to have breakfast or lunch. Then over here in the parking lot was the Presbyterian Church. Then we had over here, Bill Laughlin's office there, at M&R Grocery. Then we had Ted Kane's used car lot, and it was referred to as the working man's friend. Then it obviously had Boots Burgers, had Tropical John's. Coming behind me here, we had Cleaners was there. Then you had the Rockwall Success. The Rockwall Success was when we were able to have a newspaper. Everyone in Rockwall took the Success, and that's the way you followed who died, who was getting married. But the biggest thing the Success did in political times was the day before election on Saturday, they came out on a Thursday. So politically then, you got your ads in for that Thursday edition, and everybody would grab the Thursday edition to see what the latest tag was on the different candidates. And you hoped yours was better than your opponent's. Then you had Ralph's deal. Then where Zanata's is, you had the drugstore. Then we had Lee Mitchell's hardware store, Ace Hardware, which was Roger. And he was there. Then you had Payne Furniture, which is here in the corner. Behind Payne Furniture Company, where you had where the center is, we had a building that was probably not this large, which was City Hall, Police Department, and animal shelter, all combined. The entire city was run out of that building. We had Jess Gilbert was the city manager, who very nice guy, but not any real qualifications. We had Harry Myers, the mayor. Harry was a former Navy guy, and in his council meetings, he was always saying things like, at ease. So, and he was a builder. So, there was an emergence of that time with the transfer of Rockwall politically from being a Democratic. Ralph was a Democrat. Everybody in Rockwall basically was Democrat, except for Sherman Sparks. He was a Republican. As people moved but these people were conservative Democrats, not this nonsense that you see in the Democratic Party today. This was it's always been a conservative area. But as people were moving in, you started getting a lot more Republicans versus Democrats. Personally, I am a conservative. I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I've been taken and screwed by as many Republicans as I have Democrats. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm for being a conservative, and that's kind of the basics of what Rockwall County was. But the county government was all Democratic. What was the county judge's name that was in that article?
Harold Crawford.
Harold Crawford. Harold was a Democrat. Everybody was Democrats. All the commissioners were Democrats if you had to ask party affiliation. Well, all the council meetings were held in this little building over here. And you had newcomers moving in, which was Leon Tuttle, Ken Dixon, and more Republican type people as opposed to Democrats. You had to pick one. My wife and I moved to Rockwall in '75. The sign said population was 4,000 people. We had 4 digits dial a phone locally. Dallas was a long distance call. There was only one traffic signal right here, which was a 4-way stop. They took it out and made it a 4 yellow stop because we did not have enough traffic to justify the red stop. You had 2 ways over, you had 30 and you had 66. You could sit at our back porch and look over 66 all the way across the lake. And at night, you may see 2 cars across the lake, and that was it. My wife and I moved here because at that time, Dallas was going through that busing thing, and we had elementary age kids that we did not want busing. We wanted to get out of Dallas ISD, Dallas City, and Dallas County. My great-grandfather moved to Rockwall in about 1985, and their farm was on 1141 where they're building the new high school right now, which is now the police department, and moved from this little building here, and I'm telling you, it may not have been a whole lot bigger than half this courtroom, and moved the entire city operation there to the police department, and that was kind of like, wow, who could do better than that? Well, about that time, as we got into things, we found out that a lot of our ordinances were well behind being updated. I always kind of considered us as being minor league players in a major league park. And so we had all the ordinances out of date. Nothing was up to date. Nothing, if your ordinances don't prohibit it, you have a hard time saying, no, you can't do it. So we had to have the ordinances all updated to kind of be all consistent. So we had things going on like we had an airport out here. The feds came in about that time and they said, hey, we want to build you a new airport. And they wanted to make a regional airport out here in Rockwall. Some of the people didn't think that was a good idea. Well, as we got into the airport, we found out that the airport was giving credit to the plane owners, and there were several of these plane owners who were happened to be developers and homeowners that owed the city thousands of dollars from fuel that they'd bought, used, and don't worry about it. They're good folks. They're going to pay for it. Don't worry about it. Well, we said no. Let's get that settled. Let's get them. Get them to pay it. Well, fast forward, several of those developers did what ultimately? Took bankruptcy. And so anyway, the city got the money back, so we were in good shape on that. So that was one thing we did good. The second thing we did on the ordinances is we didn't have a thoroughfare plan. So we developed the first thoroughfare plan, which did encompass a bypass, not in the same configuration as John King, but we came up with a thoroughfare plan that we encouraged to demand that developers pay for the costs that the city incurred to provide for whatever their projects were. They kicked and screamed about that. They did not want, there's one guy, and he's not dead, so I'm not going to say his name, but he was a developer out here north of town, and there was a problem with handling the sewer from one of these Cody Streets and all that development down there. And so we said, you got to build a pump station to be able to pump it because the sewer was backing up into some homes that he didn't build, but other homes. And so we required that he build and pay for that pump station to be able to move the sewer on out where it didn't back up into the houses. He didn't like that. It was just a bad deal. We had everything on 30 and all developments in Rockwall basically at that time were being done with the aluminum construction. They were, you know, the aluminum buildings. Well, we started requiring a percent to be masonry. You would think we were killing them. You know, construction will never happen again. But we required the masonry. Then we also came up with a deal on a tree ordinance. And this had to be with, I don't know, somebody, tree huggers or whatever. So we were requiring trees to be used in the landscape thing. There was a commissioner called, I think his name was Dale Trout, and he developed a tire store where the Baptist parking lot is now. And we were talking about, he's in there trying to get the approval for his plat and all that. We were talking to him about the trees. And he said, I don't know. He said, I'll plant piss elms if you want me to. I don't care what I plant. So we had a lot of interesting times that took place there. Then we had, if you have questions, there's so few of us, if you got a question or something, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll address it and move on. So then we had a number of things happened. We had a church that started on 30 and had built a building. And Rockwall was at that time population 4,500, 5,000 people. And so we had all of a sudden this church come and say, we are going to build a 5,000 seat auditorium. So many people in this city went tilt. They're taking over our city. Eloise, remember Eloise Cullum? Eloise got some ads. She's dead, so I can talk about it. She got some ad that she told them she hated them. She hated them. Just you know, coming in, running her city. Well, they ultimately built it, and that church now is Lake Point. But the biggest thing that I think that our council did for Rockwall has to do with the development of Danny Faulkner. Now, does Danny Faulkner mean anything to anybody? Okay, well, Danny Faulkner brought down the collapse of he was a major factor bringing down the collapse of the savings and loan industry. What they did, there was a restaurant, Circle Grill, across the lake. And Danny was a painter who claimed he could not read or write. And all of a sudden you start seeing in Rockwall, Texas, and it made quite a scene at that time, a stretch limousine. And this guy running around town with a chauffeur. And we started seeing the multifamily units being built as you drove into Dallas in Garland and Mesquite. And you started seeing the billboards go up. Whatever the state allowed, ever 600 feet or whatever it was. I mean, there was billboard after billboard after billboard. There was multifamily housing everywhere, going up and down on both sides of the road. And what they would do is, and I had one at one time, I looked for it, I couldn't find it now, but I had at one time, they would take and flip land, and within 30 to 45 days, take it from selling for several $1,000s an acre to being sold by the square foot. And every one of these things was all documented. They would have this one piece of property that could go through closing 25 times within a short period of time. You had Danny Faulkner, you had Cliff Sinclair, and then you had Ernie Hughes. I think all those are dead now. And then you had a coach here in Rockwall. His name escapes me right now. But they were making millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. We had Rolls Royces. We had, I mean, it was just Rolex watches being given away almost like for tips. So all this is kind of going on, and we're all going into Dallas and coming back, and going into Dallas, and coming back, and we see this. And so we're on the council, and what is prime for that is the next step for Danny was to come into Rockwall. So our ordinances were all antiquated. A council meeting would look like, on the front row, Danny Faulkner would have a whole row of high dollar Dallas lawyers. You got this bunch of guys, an attorney out of Greenville, and they're up here saying, well, you know, your ordinances say we can do this, we can do that. They want to put multifamily. If they'd had their way, everything from the Orr House up to Horizon would be multifamily, and all that would be multifamily. Money was no issue. Well, again, since this goes from my memory and I'm talking, we'll say that this is correct. If you can remember something different than me, then you can come talk on your talk and you can say what you think. But so for today, this afternoon, mine's going to be right. I think I remember that we absolutely stopped all development in Rockwall. Yes, ma'am.
About what year was this?
This would have been 84 to 86.
Russell, Coach Chancellor.
Ken Chancellor, that's right.
I had a run-in with him, I'll tell you about it.
Yeah. All right. Ken Chancellor was a coach that got into this thing. And I mean, here he is, a coach from Rockwall, Texas in 85, and all of a sudden he's driving a Rolls Royce?
It was somebody out from Rowlett too, I can't think of his name, was big, he was over in the Rowlett Bank over there. Oh, I can't, he was in all that too. I'll think of that in a minute.
Well, there was, Holt.
Holt, and then, he was part of the Rowlett Bank over there. He was a big developer over in Rowlett.
Buddy Wall,
Who?
Buddy Wall.
No,
Well, Perry Bowden was involved too, but
well, yeah, but that's
He was pouring
concrete and all
concrete.
that. Everybody had a little bit of a finger
yeah,
around it.
but, all right, so we suspended all development the way I remember it. Now, let me back up just a little bit. In the little building, we had the city manager was Jess Gilbert, Julie Couch worked there, and pretty soon after I came on the city council, there was kind of a no confidence vote on Jess Gilbert. And so Jeff was out. We did a really great executive search for a good city manager, and we came up with Bill Lyson. And Bill Lyson was a great deal. He was a good man, knew what he was doing, and he helped guide us through this. But anyway, we shut down everything development-wise, got our ordinances up to date that prevented a lot of this stuff from going on. During that time frame, Danny Faulkner's hotel catches fire. He ends up going, the SNL's collapse. There are 80% of those projects in Garland that weren't complete were torn down. He goes to the penitentiary, which also we in Rockwall, we've sent 2 sheriffs and 1 district attorney to the penitentiary. And so he goes to the penitentiary. He gets an earlier release because he's dying of cancer. And so 3 or 4 years later, after he was given 6 months to live, I was walking out of the whorehouse, and who was walking into the whorehouse but Danny Faulkner. So he had a miraculous recovery after he got out of the penitentiary, ultimately passed away. But their concept and what they wanted was not what we felt like Rockwall was and what we wanted for Rockwall. Leon and I were not allies. We had different approaches, but Leon did a lot of things right, and I think Leon and I, much later, became not friends, but we could get along well and talk well. Ken, I always felt was a good friend, and Ken was in the oil business and had a good heart. His wife Judy still lives here in Rockwall, and I think Leon passed away when? Recently?
Yeah.
In February.
Okay, and so, but we did a lot of good by what we really, we came up with the logo that they have with the little ship and all that, the city, I don't know what you call it, what do you call it? The logo, the city logo.
Yeah.
But we did I'm proud of a number of things that we did for the city that set the course for where we are now. We had some very good men on this council. We had Art Kuhlman, who was a dentist who, in my opinion, was one of the best councilmen Rockwall ever had. We had Bobby Sparks, and so we had some good folks on the council. And I'm proud of the product that we did. I'm proud of the decisions we made, most of the decisions we made. And I think that Rockwall generally could say that they were better off when we left office than they were when we came in office.